What makes Fort Collins great? That's a really good question. In 2005, the first year that I was mayor, Money magazine came out with an edition that named Fort Collins the #1 best place to live in America. I couldn't take any credit for it because I just started being mayor. But that led to a CNN crew coming to Fort Collins to interview me, and they asked me that question. And I said, well, first of all, it's the people. Fort Collins, the climate, the city attracts some really awesome people. So it's great people, and I think a lot of it is a long-term historic planning process. Fort Collins has done great planning. They said, well, what makes Fort Collins really special? I said, I think there's three things. I think it's our historic Old Town district, I think it is the Poudre River, and I think it is Colorado State University. And let me say just a couple things about each one of those things. The historic Old Town is a good example of people doing things that helps future generations. My dad brought me and the family to Fort Collins in 1946 when I was 4 years old. There were 2 stoplights and 18,000 people. And he became a small businessman on Linden Street when it was a street, and by the way, there were no trees then. And all the time I was growing up, he had Hutchinson Furniture and Sporting Goods on Linden Street. In the 60s, when the first mall came to town, where Whole Foods is now basically, the downtown business people saw that there were some possible bad things that could happen. A lot of cities, their core got dilapidated and turned into a slum. So they formed the Downtown Merchants Association, which is a great granddaddy of the DDA. And my father was treasurer of that in the mid-60s. And these businessmen, eye on the future, decided to create those entities, partner with the city to preserve the economic health and to preserve that wonderful historical part of the city. Great example, I think, of people in Fort Collins that have made it great. The second thing, I think the Poudre River represents the concern for environmentalism and the sensitivity to that. Everything from open space to what have you, that's a special thing about Fort Collins, and I think the Poudre has helped us focus on that. And then Colorado State University is one of 2 large research universities in the state. That brings not just a lot of business kind of income to Fort Collins, but it brings great people. We've got partnerships with Colorado State University, and it just helps the whole tone of the town. So those are the things I think that make Fort Collins great. My proudest moment as mayor, probably there's a series of those that have a common theme, and that it's about the economic health issues. We had a retreat early on, and for the first time ever, the City Council spent a lengthy time off-site brainstorming what is the economic vision for Fort Collins. And we came up with the first ever one, and we worked it until all 7 council members agreed to this. And that vision was a healthy economy that reflects the values of our unique community in a changing world. So people that are concerned about the environment could say, well, environmentalism is a value of Fort Collins, is it not? Yes, absolutely it is, and should be considered. Businessmen and home builders and what have you could say, well, economic health is a value of some of the people of Fort Collins as well. That should be considered too. Yes, absolutely. Those things should all be considered. So we came up with, I think, an excellent economic vision that basically still stands to this day. That vision then was the focus with the first ever senior economic advisor that worked directly for the city manager that we hired, another first, to put together the first ever economic action plan that included things that are paying off today, like the concept of clusters, the clean energy cluster. The concept was in there. The water cluster, the concept was in there. We also did a first among the 28-some volunteer citizens advisory boards that we have. We didn't have one for the economy, and we created one back then, the Economic Advisory Commission. So there was a whole series of efforts, and the council, by the way, wearing the hat of being the Urban Renewal Authority, got involved in a balanced way, faithful to that vision, I think, by the way, doing things that an Urban Renewal Authority can do to help. You see the North College Marketplace, you see the construction down on Spring Creek, those kinds of things, Midtown effort. So the proudest moment was, I think, that series of things, and maybe the proudest of the proudest of that, for me personally, it was very gratifying, was after my first 2 years, the majority flipped, it changed. And in meeting with the members of the new majority, we discussed the economic health issues and all those things that we had done. And since they had been involved, which I very deliberately wanted all 7 council members involved in each one of those things, some of their values were always represented through each of those things. So there were no changes suggested or made. And those things still basically stand. We're updating some of them. But I was very pleased with that, because with that involvement and with that continued support of those kinds of things, the council benefits, the city, the citizens certainly benefit, and it's good governance. The greatest challenge that I faced as mayor, there was a time, and some people might remember, where there was a certain amount of dysfunctionality in the council, and the council not working together. I was writing a column on political issues for the Coloradoan for 3.5 years before I ran for mayor. And one of the council members at one point had said, I don't know why I even bother to try to talk to other council members. The majority just goes on, they vote the way they want to, and we don't have good communication. I thought, that's not right. They're all 7 elected representatives of the people of Fort Collins, and all 7 should be involved. So I think one of the biggest challenges was to have the council really, truly work together. That doesn't mean giving up or compromising endlessly. It means just being able to fight fair, work together, and bring those kinds of things together. The mayor now has no specific power to do anything wildly unique in Fort Collins. The mayor has 1 vote, just like any other council member. Mayor can propose an agenda, but other council members, majority council members, can change that. So the mayor has to have kind of a different approach, leadership by persuasion, perhaps. When I thought that through, I came up with what is really the role of mayor. For me personally, it's going to be different with different mayors, but I said, I think the mayor sets the tone and provides the leadership to enable the council to work together for the good of the people of Fort Collins overall. And that was, I kind of put that in my desk and kept that as a point to pursue to address that biggest challenge. That's the biggest broad challenge. Everything falls from that. The biggest single challenge, in 2005, the city of Fort Collins was facing a very difficult budget problem. By state law, it's a good thing, budgets have to be balanced. 2005, we had some $14 million worth of planned and programmed expenditures that our $100 million revenue in our general fund would not cover. So we had to do something with that. So we had a retreat early on, second week of 2005 council, and we kicked around this new idea of changing the budget process. And all 7 council members signed up to this. The budget process up to that point had been the classic kind of thing. Let's budget for keeping the departments running. We threw that out completely. Major change, very stressful on the organization, and the organization did a great job with it. Instead of just budgeting to keep the departments running, the new idea, the budgeting for outcomes idea, is anything that's in the budget can only be there if you can prove that it goes towards supporting a service or some kind of government activity that people need and expect. And when we applied that test against this very difficult problem, we came up with 11 pages of things that didn't meet that test, that we could stop doing. We called it the stop doing list. It added up to over $14 million. People only complained about one thing on that list, nighttime dial-a-ride, and we managed to fix that. So we were able to, that was almost 14, we were able to balance that budget by stopping doing things and nobody noticed. I think that was the fact. That was a very positive approach to the budget issue. That process still stands. We even post all of our expenditures on fcgov.com. So it's a very open process that people can participate in. The greatest long-term impact, I think, was related to decisions on, number one, on the budget. That was a major decision, and it was very stressful on the organization to make that kind of complete total change from budgeting to keep the departments running to budgeting to provide services that citizens need and expect. So the economic health decisions were the important ones. The council, wearing its hat as the Urban Renewal Authority, made a lot of decisions that were great long-term impact. We're seeing again, we're in the middle of a lot of that impact in Midtown and what have you. Another major decision was to go forward with the Keep Fort Collins Great initiative, 2011. People voted in an increased sales tax for a temporary period, 10-year period. I think council really did this right, to keep Fort Collins great. We had talked with the people, what's important to people in Fort Collins. If you look back through city surveys, transportation issues and concerns are almost always in the top 1 or 2 or 3 concerns that citizens express. So Keep Fort Collins Great tax initiative, 10-year temporary tax, half of it goes towards transportation issues. You hear practically every day about infrastructure problems across the United States, crumbling bridges and so on. Not true in Fort Collins. People stood up and voted, and they strongly supported this. It passed very strongly. And we are repairing our crumbling bridges and infrastructure. We are fixing our streets. That's half of the tax. The rest of it goes to police, fire, and parks. These are things that will keep Fort Collins great. It gives council a few years here to figure out, okay, how do we keep supporting those things, and perhaps we need to look at different revenue flows. The third thing, and maybe the thing that will have the biggest long-term impact, was a decision to change the Mason Corridor idea. It used to be called the Mason Street Transportation Corridor. And the conceptual changes that we went through in those 2005-06 was to change the idea not about just transit, but about an economic health corridor that runs the length of Fort Collins, enabled by transit, that's helped by transit. And the decision maker, as we went through the process of applying for federal money, which are available for mid-size city transit systems, then Senator Wayne Allard, who it helped a lot. He was an old classmate of mine at Fort Collins High School back in the olden days. I had 3 meetings with him about our application, because it went to him as in the United States Senate, and he was the decision maker about who received those funds. And the first meeting he said, I saw this thing about the transit, I don't really support this Mason Street Transportation Corridor. I said, we've changed the concept, we've integrated it more with the city transportation system. And at the 3rd meeting I finally was able to articulate, I said, I think, Senator Allard, this investment in federal dollars in transit is going to have more leverage in Fort Collins, Colorado than just about any place, because it's not just about transit. It's really an economic health corridor enabled by transit. Those transit dollars will leverage, and they are. The project on Spring Creek would not be underway except for the transportation services that the Mason Corridor will provide. We call it the Mason Corridor now, so it's not just about transportation. It is economic health. That's the biggest public works projects in the history of Fort Collins. I think it's going to have the longest impact. I think we're doing that right. My fondest memories of serving on council was the humor and the interaction within the council as we worked some of the tough issues. I would frequently call the council in public a richly diverse city council. That means we had a lot of political, very different views. And some of my best memories are when council members really rose to the occasion, and even though they had political differences, we get together and kick it around, often with more than a little bit of humor, and that would make the best decision. I truly believe, by the way, that we make better decisions when we have that rich diversity, because you don't have any kind of groupthink going on. You get different ideas brought together. If you have a good group with those fond memories of them actually working together and fighting fair, you end up with a better solution than any one of us could have come up with. So I really strongly support that idea. And this fit in with what I had said earlier. There are 7 members of City Council elected by the people of Fort Collins. All 7 members should be involved. Whether they have strong agreements or disagreements, all 7 should be involved. We make better decisions that way. Advice for the next generation of Fort Collins leaders and residents. I think the most important thing, in my view, is to keep that balance. Quality of life in Fort Collins is really a combination of 3 things. The environment, which we do pretty well with. The community, it's schools and hospitals and sewers that run the right way and things like that. And then the third thing, which by the way pays for the first two, and that's the economy. So environment, community, and economy. And if you do that in a balanced way, which I think we've been doing for many years now, then you have the best approach that represents the direction that I think most citizens in Fort Collins are interested in. I think residents, advice for the future, residents should stay involved. The City of Fort Collins does a marvelous planning process and has for years. It's open to the public. We open our budget to public input. Citizens have a responsibility to kind of watch what's going on and to be engaged and to be involved. And so that's a strong piece of advice that I would have for the citizens. Stay involved, stay engaged. There's opportunities to do that. Your voice should be heard. And the other advice to residents and to the council that I would give is keep on doing the good planning, and the city staff of Fort Collins. We've done excellent planning in Fort Collins. It has paid off. It's going to be even more important to do good planning to meet the future challenges. And good planning involves having that citizen involvement and council listening. Fort Collins in 25 years. What's Fort Collins going to be like in 25 years? One thing for sure, I think we'll be built out. We will have built ourselves up against the city limits of Fort Collins now. We aren't there yet. And that's a fixed boundary. So that will mean changes in density, probably some changes in transportation. What should we be doing to help us get there? Continue again doing that good planning. It's hard to look out even 25 years. I think 25 years ago was 1988. Let's see, IBM had just come out with the first PC a year or so earlier. The Cold War was still underway. Cell phones were virtually unheard of. That's just 25 years. So it's hard to predict. I'm optimistic though. I think Fort Collins will be healthy, especially if we continue to do our excellent planning and community building and the partnership with the people. 100 years out. 100 years ago was 1913. The one thing I know about talking about 100 years from now is that I can't possibly predict anything about what it's going to be like. Think about 1913. Who would have predicted World War I, which hadn't happened yet, the Worldwide Depression, World War II, the Cold War. 1912, there were no commercial radio stations even. And atomic energy was just a thought in Einstein's mind. So the things that happened in the 100 years from 1913 represent enormous change, accelerating change. I think that change is going to accelerate. I'm optimistic. I think that mankind is very flexible in adapting to all kinds of challenges. There's going to be some big ones. One of the big issues that will be around still, I think, in 100 years, and we need to plan for now and continue planning for now, is water in this area. Another big issue covers a multitude of things, is just continuing to manage growth. I think Fort Collins has managed how it's grown quite well. The challenges of doing that are going to be even greater. That's one area, an issue that we need to focus on. And again, citizens need to exercise their responsibility of being involved in that process. I'm optimistic.